Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sonia and I love everything high-end and luxury beauty, and that's kind of the space that I'm trying to create here. Probably saw it from the title. Today we're going to be looking at the new Dior palette. I got the 509 Golden Bouquet palette. Now I actually reviewed this yesterday for myself, but during editing I was just not happy with the footage, so I'm going to include some older footage, of course when the palette was new, the first time I was swatching it, but I want to just get into the palette again today. I couldn't really finalize what I wanted to say in that video. Sometimes it takes me a while to just get to a certain conclusion, and usually that means that I should probably experiment with the palette a little bit more. So this is the 509 palette. This is a limited edition palette and I thought this was going to be a Japan exclusive. I'm so happy it's currently available in Europe but also in the US. I think it is available since today, so I do have an affiliate code that you can use if you want to buy this palette at the end of this video, and I do earn a little bit of commission from that affiliate, but that commission goes right back into my YouTube channel. As you can tell, I'm still a very small channel. Everything you see on my channel is bought by me and I'm happy to do it, but of course any type of commission could help my channel so much. Anyway, let's get into the video. So this is the 509 palette, and one of the stunning features about this is of course the embossing. It really captures your eye. Of course, when you see this palette, you see kind of beigey tones, a little bit of gold tones, and one very rich brown shade, almost to a black. When I saw this palette, it did really remind me of the, what's it called, Grand Ball palette. Now I don't have the palette on hand, but I did do some swatches in store of the Grand Ball palette, so you can see the swatches, finger swatches of course, and of course that is store lining, so it's a little bit more, I guess they always make the palettes look more shimmery than they actually are. On that day I did end up buying Poncho. That was a quint that I really wanted to have for a long time, and that's kind of like my style of quint. It's a lot of brown tones and just very everyday friendly, so I could do some comparison swatches between the two of them, although I don't feel like they look too similar. And of course Poncho is part of the core line, and this is a limited edition palette. My expectations going into this palette, you know, you see 4 very bright shades, so you were hoping to get a few different finishes, because 4 very bright shades doesn't mean there's going to be a lot of dimension. There's only one color that you can add a lot of dimension from, and this is almost like as deep as a liner color, so I was definitely interested to try this palette. The embossing is actually something that I do really like, and therefore you're kind of drawn to this palette, but you know that embossing at some point in time it gets ruined or just fades away anyway. So technically I would advise you not to buy a palette because of the embossing, but if you are a Dior lover like I am and you do want to have a bit of a collection going, I do think this is a really nice collection piece. Now this retails for 67 euros in the Netherlands at least. I'll put the dollar and the pound prices down below if I can find them, which is kind of the normal style of a Dior quint. This year I've been really digging into Dior quints. I'm really loving this kind of soft, sophisticated look that Dior has, and I want to try to purchase a few more of their core line. They come out with limited edition options all the time, but from what I hear from the reviews is it's sort of a hit or miss. Now I used this yesterday, so I have a little bit more experience with this, but let's get into the palette for today. I'll also include some footage of yesterday so you can see 2 ways on how to use this palette. Now I did do a short already using this palette, and someone commented that they thought it looked like the silk palette of Victoria Beckham Beauty, so I can make that comparison for you guys if that is helpful. So these are the side-by-side swatches. This is the silk palette by Victoria Beckham Beauty, and this is the new 509 Golden Bouquet palette. I feel like silk is way more golden, almost leaning to copper tones, whereas 509 is actually very neutral, beige type of tones, and 4 of the shades look incredibly similar. And that is kind of what I experienced yesterday as well. And what you're hoping then with a Dior quint like this is you hope to get a few different finishes so you can get more dimension on the eye. Now let's go into the demo because I've rambled on a little bit too much already, and then you can see how the palette performs. Now I'm using the brushes that I used yesterday, so if the brushes look dirty, don't worry, those are the brushes that I used yesterday. And the first thing I want to do this time around is I want to go into that middle shade, the darkest shade of the palette. Let's buff that out. To me, this middle shade is a well-performing shade, very comparable to the regular Dior Quince. It blends out really well, and you can really build up the intensity of this shade, but also just blend it out to a very soft brown color. Now I'm quite happy on where this is at, so I'm gonna go into this bottom left corner shade, layer that over the darkest shade. Also putting a little bit into the crease area. Then I'm gonna go in this beautiful golden shade. I love this shade in this palette and probably the best performing shade. And I like to use this one with my finger. I'm gonna go in that lightest shade to highlight the inner corners and of course do my brow bone. Then I'm gonna go in with that last shade that I haven't used yet. I'm putting that all the way on the bottom lash line. And this is what it looks like on the eyes. Let's do the other eye, apply some mascara, and let's talk about this palette. So here is the final look. What do you guys think of it? Let me know in the comment section down below if you like this palette. And let's get into kind of my final thoughts. First off, I'm so happy that I decided to refilm this because this time around, my look turned out so much better than the first time. And I kind of gave it a pretty harsh review after my first impression. But people did say that they thought that my eyeshadow looked really nice and very beautiful. So therefore I thought, okay, why not try to maybe work with the palette a little bit more to see if I can get a different look out of it. The first time around I used the deepest shade as a liner instead of how I did it this time. And I think that this worked out so much better. But I do have some thoughts. First off, I think the palette looks absolutely beautiful. And if you're a collector, I think that this is something you might want to pick up just because if you're someone that likes Dior shadows, this does look like a showstopper piece. And I quite like having something like this in my collection just to be proud of and stare at. In terms of eyeshadows, however, if I do look at the finishes, I kind of wish that these 4 shades weren't so much alike. And I had the same problem yesterday where I felt like I wasn't building up any dimension. You hope that this shade kind of deepens out the outer corners, but it doesn't really do that. It's also too much of a satin formula to put around the crease area. It's too shiny for your crease, and therefore I didn't know what to do with this palette. I didn't know where it was going. It does make for a very beautiful bright eye look, and I do understand that this might be a very popular palette in Japan, and why they would launch something like this first in Japan, because not only is it aesthetically pleasing, it is also very fair and very fair girl friendly. Without this middle shade to anchor this palette, I don't think that this palette has any redeeming qualities. Can I say that? But my point is, without this middle shade, there's so little to this quint that can actually make a look out of, just because those 4 shades look so much alike. Now, if the 4 shades had different type of finishes, so they don't all feel the same. One of them is definitely more metallic, and the other one, it definitely feels more chalky, but there's no actual shimmer shade in this. I actually really like the shimmer formula of Dior. Of course, they're not like Pat McGrath Blitz Astral Shimmers. It's a very refined shimmer shade, but Poncho, for example, has that beautiful shade that is kind of shimmery. It's this brighter one, and it's sort of like a top coat. And it gives you this really beautiful shimmery effect on the eye that I can really appreciate. And in the sun, this is a shade where you see little glitter particles just peeking through. None of these shadows have that type of glitter particle shimmery to them. They're kind of that more satin formula that's also in the Poncho palette. But where it's kind of lacking is, I guess, the quality of this palette. I feel like Poncho swatches much smoother and much easier. And I feel like not all the shadows swatch like that from this new palette. You even feel the difference between, for example, this shade feels incredibly soft. This is a really nice shade. And also the middle shade is very top notch. But the moment you get into the brightest shade, for example, that one feels a little chalky, and it also is the least performing out of all of them. So in terms of quality, I actually think the core line of what I tried from Dior is above the quality of this one. This is definitely more of a limited edition showstopper piece. Now you can get a pretty look out of it because I do think that this looks really pretty, but these have to be, one, your colors, and two, you have to appreciate it for a little bit more than just the quality of the eyeshadows. And if this is the first time you're looking at a Dior Quins and you wanted to maybe get this one, to be completely honest with you, I would kind of direct you at Grand Ball or Poncho instead of this one. Even though the embossing looks very pretty, I just don't think it's actually worth it. So guys, I hope this video is helpful for you guys, and if you liked anything about this video, make sure to press a like. If you do want to buy this palette or you want to look at Poncho instead, please make sure to use my affiliate down below because it does help my channel out tremendously. If you're someone that also just invested in the Chanel Tweed palettes and you're kind of like, I'm sorry, but there's no money left, please make sure to subscribe to my channel for more Dior and Chanel content because I am trying to upload a little bit more of those brands. I've been really into the more sophisticated shadows lately. I kind of feel like it suits my, I guess, aesthetics a bit more. And if you're into that, please make sure to subscribe and also comment down below if you just want to nerd out about Dior or Chanel or any of the other brands that I follow. I want to thank you guys all, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye!